Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tanya Kern, Strategic Content Editor for Roofing Contractor, and this is the Best of Success podcast show. It's always a pleasure to have our friend Trent Cotney, partner at Adams and Reese, on the show. Trent, welcome.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
Great to see you again, especially after seeing you a couple weeks ago at Best of Success. It was a great time. You offered a lot of great guidance to contractors.
Yeah, thank you. It was packed. I couldn't believe the turnout and great show. Kudos to you guys for putting that on.
Thank you. So we've been hearing from contractors that accounts receivables are going up and the backlog for contractors is going down for business. What kind of guidance are you able to give people about capturing back some of those dollars?
Yeah, so there's some legal nuances to it, but there's also some operational excellence that I think you can apply to your business. And there's a couple of things I was asked earlier, what's one piece of advice that you could give any contractor? And look, I'm a business owner. I've been a business owner. I've had to deal with accounts receivable. So I'm not just a lawyer sitting in an ivory tower somewhere. I understand what it's like to have to collect and make payroll. And the one piece of advice that I would give is actually I'll give two pieces of advice. The first one is vet your customers. It's my dad always referred to me as boy or son growing up, and he said, boys, customers that you don't take that make you successful. And I didn't know what he meant until I started my own business, and now I know exactly what he means. We live in a world where you can find out anything about anybody with a click of a button. So before you sign a proposal or a contract, make sure that you're going out and you're looking in the official records and the county records to see, has this customer, are they in foreclosure? Do they have liens against their house? Do they sue contractors? Go and search the reviews they left. Do they leave nothing but negative reviews? If so, why would you ever sign a contract with them? It's not going to go well. So those warning signs are typically out there. If you do your due diligence up front, you can prevent it from being bad on the back end. The second thing is, as an owner or a member of management, it's very important that you keep your eye on the prize, right? When I'm talking to lawyers that are working with me, I tell them that we're not special, right? There are hundreds of lawyers that can do the same exact thing that we can do. The difference is the experience, right? The experience is what really brings it home. And the same thing applies to construction and contracting. If you manage the customer's expectations, if they enjoy the experience, if you're holding their hand through the entire process, then if something does happen, you can potentially resolve it. And in turn, they're going to want to pay you more. And that's a good thing. The last thing I'll mention is that never take your eye off of AR. There's this tendency, and before I merged with Adams and Reese, we had about 100 employees, right? I had to download accounts receivable. And you take your eye off that ball and you rely on other people to do it for you, which you've got to do to a certain extent. The problem is that as a member of management, the only person that's really going to care is going to be you, right? You've got to make sure that you are watching that accounts receivable and putting good operational procedures in place so that you're engaging in multiple points of contact with a customer that owes you money, having sort of an email drip campaign followed up by phone calls and demand letters, a flow chart, all those standard operating procedures in place so that you make sure that you're being purposeful and consistent with regard to collections. That, I think, is probably the soundest advice I can give. Obviously, there's a ton of legal time. We talked about it before.
Sure.
You can do demand letters and lien claims and file suit, but nobody likes lawyers, myself included. If you have to, engage a lawyer to do something, you're potentially making the cure worse than the disease. So the goal is have better operations, right? Have that level of excellence, making sure that you're doing your best to collect and being proactive rather than reactive.
So you mentioned that owners should really have their eye on AR on a regular basis. How much time does that really take to do it well?
So you need good people under you, right? You've got to make sure that the people that you hire to do AR are incentivized by performance. I made the mistake. I've hired plenty of AR people, most of which were not the best. If you hire accounts receivable people that are paid hourly, they have no incentive to do anything, right? You'll get 10 calls a day. If you hire somebody and you pay them a percentage of what's collected or based on performance, you stand a much better chance of getting things done and collected. What you need to do is weekly be looking at the AR reports and actively asking questions or reaching out yourself. There's nothing that makes an impact more than picking up the phone to a customer and saying, hey, I'm the president of so-and-so company. I see you haven't paid. I wanted to reach out to you personally and say, what's going on? Is there something that we can do to make you happy so we can get that payment? That makes all the difference in the world, right? And it's as soon as it gets 90 plus, you start running into more and more problems, right? So the quicker you can collect it, the better. That's why I think weekly you should be looking at what your outstanding AR is, making determinations on it. And for especially problem children that are out there, reach out the phone and call yourself.
Yeah, that personal touch makes all the difference. Can only imagine.
Yeah.
It's different if they have to answer to the owner of the company versus someone who they might assume is just working for the owner.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is there's an art to collections, right? There really is an art. You've got to be compassionate, and that sounds difficult, right? If somebody owes me money, I want them to pay me the money, right? Pay me the money. But a lot of times it requires listening. So you got to get on the phone to the customer, and you got to understand what the issues are and try to eliminate what those impediments are to payment. I found a lot of times, let's say a customer owes $15,000. They can't pay 15, right? But they could pay you 5 and then pay more the following week, right? That's what you have to start thinking about. Sometimes break it down. Say, okay, what can you pay today? Let's work on figuring out what we can get in the door. Don't release or waive anything that that's not final payment, but get what you can and start chipping away at it so that you're not going after the full amount. The other thing that you can do is, there's a lot of leverage points, right? You don't get warranties until you pay. So good luck trying to sell your house if you don't have a warranty on the work that was done, right? Use that as leverage. Lien claims are really important. They're secured interest. You can file them. Every state has different rules on liens. So you want to make sure that, those timing requirements are absolutely critical. You want to follow those, get that done. But the key thing is figuring out what is the impediment. You're going to run into some people that just don't want to pay you. And if that's the case, you got to do what you got to do. But 9 times out of 10, you can usually figure out some way to get what you need, whether it's taking it over time or it's possibly discount a little bit to correct an issue that they might have had. It's customer service. That's why I always like to hire salespeople to do my collections, right? Because if you have somebody that's personable, they're going to be much more likely to pay you than just your typical, you got to pay me kind of thing.
Right. So. Sounds like you could write a book on this topic, Trent.
Maybe that's the next one.
Yeah, it would be great. Well, thank you. You always give us great advice. We appreciate your time and wishing you very happy holidays.
Same to you.